right, I'd like to call the Thursday, January 20th, Wilton Board of Education regular meeting to order. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Ruth. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Pam. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that leads us to public comment. As I usually say, we certainly welcome public comment. If you wish to make a comment tonight, please use the raise hand feature in the Zoom directions and state your name and address. And please be aware to limit your comments to 2 minutes, and know that as a board, we limit comments on any one topic to about 15 minutes. It may be frustrating, but remember that the board does not respond directly to comments. Instead, we appreciate your input and will follow up, provide follow-up if that's appropriate. So do we have any public comment? Lucille, you're going to find the people, I think.
Yes, I do. We have one public comment right now.
Okay.
Okay, it's from Jared Martin, and I've just allowed him to talk.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Hello, good evening all. Happy New Year. Two real quick things that I wanted to bring up. First off, I would request that the board, as well as the administration, recruit or resource some optometrists and other folks to discuss about eye fatigue and screen time issues that children are having, specifically when it comes to MillerDriscoll. We've had issues with our daughter. I brought it to the principal's attention, asked for notes to come in, but I think that the board should actually be aware of how much screen time we are applying and realize that we're no longer on chalkboards, but everything is screens, including even library time. So as we try to move into this new world, what are the ramifications that it has on our kids' eyesight, both near term and long term? Second request that I would have is, I know we have a budgetary discussion later on in this meeting with an $85 million proposed budget. And within that budget, I would ask that, that the administration considers perhaps in the study of biology and microbiology, specifically when it comes into Cider Mill, that we procure some light microscopes for the science class. So right now they're essentially looking at the equivalent of our, the children's slide version of pictures, where you can buy light microscopes for extraordinarily cheap. And I would hope that we could actually pursue that so we can get some real hands-on activities within the science realm. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there further public comments, Lucille?
No, that was it.
Okay.
Hold on,
The
Lucille.
consent agenda, there aren't any items. I'm sorry.
That's there was
I see another one.
Got a hand. Yeah.
Yes, I see another one.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Hold on one second.
Go ahead, Mr. Litton. We can hear you. Good evening.
Okay, cool. Thank you. No, I just one request. I was looking through the proposed budget, and I was looking for detail that looked at number of FTE per academic department, and getting down to the number of, just more detail in the proposed budget in terms of the number of teachers in the various departments, so we can kind of see how things are progressing over time and which departments are getting funded and which ones are not.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps some of those questions will get answered later on, but if not, there's more budget information coming and will be posted everywhere. So thanks for the question.
Okay, thank you.
Any other public comment?
No, I believe that's it now.
Okay. Moving on to reports and recognition. Board chair, I do not have a report. The board recently sent out an update to families and the public, and hopefully people will get a chance to read that. It is posted on the Board of Ed website or webpage as well. Superintendent. You're muted, Kevin.
I've got way too much going on here tonight. I've done that 3 times.
Can I, and if I can just, a technical issue, I think the YouTube channel is not transmitting for folks who are trying to watch it that way. So Lucille, I don't know if there's something magic you can work behind the scenes on that front.
No, we can't live stream tonight on the
Oh, okay.
YouTube channel. So there's a pop-up right on the website that leads them to the link so they can zoom in through the webinar.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Great. Okay. So just a couple of updates this evening. First, we want to congratulate our colleagues, Dr. Amy Korn and Scott Silver Benito, who have had one of their proposals accepted to be presented at the annual International Society for Technology and Education Conference. Their presentation topic is how to make curriculum accessible to all by supporting teachers' individual needs. Both Scott and Amy are steeped in the research on universal design for learning and are regular presenters at this very prestigious and very cutting edge conference. The environment there is highly competitive, and that they've been accepted, and they've been accepted multiple times over the years, speaks volumes about their innovative practices. So we want to congratulate Amy and Scott. A couple of weeks ago, our high school debate team competed virtually in the Connecticut Debate Association January debate tournament. High school student Sid Suneja took home the first place speaker award in the varsity division. So we want to congratulate Sid. Just prior to the December break, we learned that Wilton High School was once again recognized as a CIAC Michaels Cup winner. Wilton is among 22 other high schools across the state to be recognized this year. The Michaels Cup Committee recognizes exemplary athletics programs for their willingness to subscribe to the Class Act sportsmanship standards, for empowering student athletes to take an active role in improving school climate, and for participating in community service. So we want to congratulate Athletic Director Chris McDougall, all of our coaches, and all of our student athletes for once again being recognized with the Michaels Cup. On a different note, as you are well aware, today was our third inclement weather day of the season. So our last day of school is now Tuesday, June 21st. If we have another inclement weather day, that day we will utilize remote learning. So I'll be meeting with the principals tomorrow to discuss this. We'll develop those plans and the schedules, and we'll send them out to parents so parents can be prepared in each building for the should we have another inclement weather day. That's it for my report.
Thank you, and congratulations to everyone you mentioned. Very, very impressive. Committee reports. I know business operations did not meet. I don't think policy met. Did teaching and learning meet?
We did.
Okay.
We had two things on our agenda. Reading materials at the high school and the Middlebrook schedule. The short one first is the Middlebrook schedule. I think they have two hopeful possibilities. They're trying to go through their committee and the staff and all the stakeholders, and eventually, I think, present it to the full board maybe soon. I know Jory's team is working really hard on it, so we're just finding multiple roadblocks along the way that they're trying to figure out. The other thing, the reading materials at the high school, Eric Mendelson, who is the humanities instructional coach, put together a list for 9th and 10th grade. And I believe that 11th and 12th grade is being worked on. This was something that I had actually asked just to come up with one place that we could have a list of what our kids were reading or being asked to read, just to make it easy so that we as a board and everybody and a school district could just be completely transparent as to what our kids were doing, especially in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion and whatnot. And I'm sure that there might be some parents who have a question about it. I'm also confident that our teachers are excited about what they're teaching our kids and are able to field any questions that they get. So hopefully if we have parents that do reach out to teachers, they can do so in a respectable manner. That would be appreciative. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Financial report. Mary Ann, you're joining us. Thank you.
I'll field this one.
Sure.
and very briefly, and if you have questions, then we'll kick those over to Marianne. So Marianne, first,
Okay.
thanks for joining us tonight. In general, we're continuing to track to our budget. And so we are moving right along, and there are no significant variances. The only variance I would call your attention to is a variance under, I just lost it. Under equipment repair and maintenance, there's a $43,175 variance, and that is to cover an elevator repair at the high school. So we have the funds in the budget. We are making the transfer. We just haven't finalized it yet, but that's showing here on that line in the budget. And Marianne, I don't think there's anything else that's really.
No, pretty much everything else is on target for the year. No
Great.
Significant changes.
No, when you have a chance to review the report in detail, you also note Marianne added a column to the far right-hand side, so you can see what % of each budget line is expended over the course of each monthly report. And so we'll have another one for you in February.
Any questions? My only question, and I know it will be covered by excess costs, but the special ed tuition, is it private, I think? Is that more kids, or is that still tracking where you thought it was going to end up, even though it's an overage? Does that make any sense?
It does make sense. And I think right now it's tracking somewhat to where we are expecting it to be. Andrea, I'm not sure if you would agree with that. We'll get our first excess cost payment in the beginning of February, and that will tell us more.
All right.
It
All
is
right, thank
close. I think we're slightly higher than we are typically, but not dramatically higher. But the impact of COVID is happening across the board. It's not dramatic, it's not overwhelming, but it is slightly higher than usual at this time of year.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Marianne, for being here tonight. Kevin, anything else on the finance report? Anybody else have questions?
No, I think the good news is we're tracking.
Okay. All right, let's continue. We have a COVID update, and Kevin, I assume that's yours.
Everybody's favorite topic. Well, the good news is that we are trending in the right direction. Yesterday, we reported just 7 positive cases. And, though we'd seen an uptick across the weekend, I think we reported 45 new cases over the 3-day holiday weekend. We'd only had 8 new cases last Friday. And so we're absolutely, compared to the 2 weeks prior, very much trending in the right direction. As I continue to watch, the COVID Act Now website, which is pretty dynamic and updates a couple times daily, and then collect the information from the DPH. I noted that the COVID Act Now website was reporting 165 daily new cases per 100,000 for Fairfield County. And that's daily case count has dropped almost as dramatically as it had risen several weeks ago. So that's very good news. The Department of Public Health was reporting 158 new cases per day for Wilton, but that was a 2-week look back, for the period, I think it was the day after Christmas through January 8th. And so it's going to take a couple weeks for the DPH to catch up with what's actually happening. On the staff front, staff absences are also substantially lower than they had been in the last 2 weeks. I think yesterday we had just over 40 absences, which is half the number that we were managing when we returned from the holiday break in early January. So all of that's really good news for us. As I think you're well aware, over the course of the last several weeks, we've distributed masks and home test kits to our schools. So those were shared with staff members and with families. This past Friday, we took another shipment from the state of 2,800 at-home test kits. Those were, again, distributed to the schools. And so we're just letting all families know, if you need a test kit because your child is showing symptoms, we certainly have them, and just call the school and we can provide those to you. I think we are, we're going to just continue to watch the numbers. The trends are moving in the right direction. I'll be engaging the conversation in short order with Maria Coleman and Dr. Mackin, and we're going to be, looking to loosen up restrictions as we end this month and move into February. So I would say on the COVID front, all good news.
Kevin, can I ask you a quick question about the test that you guys have at home that we can give to families if they ask for them? What's, in terms of if they ask for it, do they then have to provide the school the results? Are we asking for that, or are you just offering it if a parent asks for it?
No, we're offering. I mean, certainly if the test is returned positive, we'd like to know, because that, if it's a child, the child will need to isolate. And, that is information that we're tracking and also sharing with the State Department of Health. So, but
it's not a requirement for a parent to ask for it to then give you the results.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure. Anything else on COVID?
Well, there's lots, but maybe not tonight. We're going to stop with the good news. So thank you.
Fair enough.
All right. The next item is Wilton Reads, an annual project. And Kevin, do you want to introduce it?
I do. And before we get into Wilton Reads, I'm going to turn that over to Elaine and to Frank Compar. But as I think you are all aware, our dear friend Elaine Tyloria has announced her retirement and is finishing up her tenure with the Wilton Library Association. And so we just want to recognize Elaine and say thank you. The Wilton Library has benefited from Elaine's leadership. I would say not just the Wilton Library, but all of us, the whole Wilton community has benefited from Elaine's leadership for almost the last decade, I think 9.5 years or so. During her time with the Wilton Library Association, she implemented many programs such as the Innovation Studio, the robotics team, the Hot Jazz series with the Wilton Historical Society. She's cheerleading the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten series, and was a key player in bringing the Brubeck collection to the Wilton Library Association and making, this rarefied collection available to all of the residents here in Wilton and to the wider community, and really putting Wilton Library on the map in the jazz music scene. As a strong collaborator with the Wilton School District, Elaine has annually addressed our new teachers, provided them with library cards and honorary memberships, and placed all of the resources in the Wilton Library at the disposal of our new teachers to support them in their service to our kids. She has been an amazing partner, has arranged to keep the library open during exam time so our kids would have additional places to study, and has just been a tremendous resource and partner to us and to our students during her tenure. Now on to Wilton Reads. We are incredibly grateful for her collaboration on this program. As you are aware, our district initially partnered with Elaine and the Wilton Library Association 4 years ago for an inaugural program on the Holocaust that featured Heather Morris, the author of The Tattooist of Auschwitz. That year we partnered and were able to provide such a rich program for every age group that the library was recognized by the Connecticut Library Association's Award for Excellence in Public Library Service. And the school district was also recognized with the National School Public Relations Society with the Golden Achievement Award for Excellence in Communication and Community Engagement. The program has been a yearly tradition, and not to be disappointed, Elaine and Fran are here again tonight, and they're going to present to all of you and to the community this year's Wilton Reads theme and book. So Elaine, please know that you are much loved and will be much missed. And thank you so much for your time and your dedication to all of us here in Wilton and the Wilton Public Schools.
Well, thank you, Kevin, and thank you for really being so kind and generous. Those comments are really deserved by the entire team here. As they say, it takes a village. So I commend everyone here, and I really am so grateful for the wonderful partnership that we've had with the Wilton Public Schools. I'd like to, say how much I appreciate the board, giving me the opportunity to speak about Wilton Reads again. And, you know, it's interesting because it's been 16 years since we've been doing this program, well before I came on board here as the director. And the first one was a collaboration between the public schools, Wilton Public Schools, and the library. And the book selected then was To Kill a Mockingbird. Since then, of course, we've expanded the program, really developing the theme. And I can't thank Fran and Kevin really for being advocates for expanding the program to the schools and to the community at large. So from reading that single book, we now offer a broad slate of programs that complement the selected book and its theme. Over the last 3 years or 4 years now, our collaboration really has been a partnership, I think. And the Wilton Public School students now read age-appropriate books on the topic. So it really invites the entire community to participate in this community read program. So I can't thank you enough for that, you know, collaboration on this important annual event. Together, we have invited both the community and students to participate in informative, enlightening, and inspirational conversations. As you mentioned, the Holocaust, we also did one on jazz, and last year we did on race relations and racism. This year, we've decided to focus on our community and to celebrate who we are. So it is my pleasure to announce the book that has been selected this year. And I'd like to do a shout out to Lauren McLaughlin, our assistant director here, who suggested the book, and we were all enthused about it. The book is Wilton, Connecticut, 3 Centuries of People, Places, and Progress by Robert H. Russell, published by the Wilton Historical Society. The author, of course, Bob Russell, is well known to many of us. Bob is regarded as the town's historian, and he's a volunteer extraordinaire. His passion for community service propelled him to the position of first selectman of Wilton from 1993 to 1999. Bob He's also been involved in virtually every aspect of life in Wilton, serving on boards and committees here at the library, at the Historical Society, and several other local organizations. He and his wife, Carol, were instrumental in establishing the Wilton History Room here at the library. And I fondly refer to them as the walking encyclopedias of Wilton, because they have such a breadth of knowledge of the town and just such a commitment to the history of this town. So in his book, Bob explores the rich history of our town over the 3 centuries. And in discussing his book, we are going to supplement that with a number of engaging programs. And of course, he'll be introducing us to the early pioneers, revolutionary patriots, gold rush prospectors, and to many of the fascinating people, organizations, events, and traditions that have contributed to the character and lifestyle of Wilton as we know it today. I'm confident that all residents, particularly our students and families who have moved to Wilton recently, I know we've had over 400 families move to Wilton recently, and indeed all of us will find this book absolutely fascinating. I believe readers will be amazed to learn of the history that lies behind some of the names of places, buildings, roads, and fields that they casually pass each day. So as we emerge from this Wilton Reads, I think we'll become certainly more informed about our town, and I think even more proud to be Wiltonians. So with that, I will hand it over to Fran to talk a little bit about what the school will be doing, all of the different schools. And I just want to say again, thank you so much for the collaboration over these years, and I really look forward to another exciting Wilton 22.
So good evening. It's my distinct privilege to represent Wilton Public Schools in collaboration with Wilton Library on the Community Reads program. And it has been my honor to be able to announce this election each year with Elaine for the past 4 years and work closely with her on the program as well as so many others. Her leadership and vision have made it possible for us to provide very special experiences for our students and our teachers. I want to thank you personally, Elaine, for your collaboration, your professionalism, and your kindness. Indeed, I will miss you very, very much. This is our 4th year of engaging all members of our community, including our students, in learning and discussing an important topic based on a common book. The shared reading of one book about Wilton's history, Peoples and Progress, by town historian Robert Russell provides an important opportunity for students to learn more about their town, their state, and its history. Through our book selections at each of the grade levels, we'll also explore the power of community and discuss through books how students can do their part to make their community a better place. The Wilton Public Schools Community Reads Task Force will meet beginning tomorrow to select age-appropriate titles and create a program for our students. Although the programming is still in the works right now, I'd like to preview some of the ideas that we have been considering. A documentary to be created by our high school students based on interviews with the author as well as others who have Wilton roots. Our video production students have had an important role in past Wilton Reads. For example, in 2019, the video production team produced a moving award-winning documentary, Never Forget for Anyone Ever. These were stories and messages from Holocaust survivors, their children and grandchildren. We believe that we can do something similar this year. We'll look at celebrating poetry by authors about and from the area. There is a poem by Poet Laureate Marilyn Nelson entitled Ware Farm, and that will be something that we'll actually focus on. We'll have virtual visits by authors that are from the area. I got one confirmation today that I'm very excited about and hope to discuss with the task force tomorrow. We're partnering with organizations such as the Historical Society and taking advantage of curriculum tie-ins, such as a unit on community at MillerDriscoll, as well as a 3rd grade unit called Wilton Now and Then. I'm sure there will be others that we'll unearth. And we will, of course, tie in with this timely topic to our portrait of our graduate. The work earlier this year began with a community asset mapping project to identify resources within our community that students can partner with. And we feel that this will be a great tie-in as well. I'd also like to recognize our school PTAs for their continued support of Wilton Reads. In past years, they have been instrumental in us being able to bring in authors, and they continue that support, which I'm grateful to. Both the final book list and events will be finalized by February, and we'll be posting it on the website and communicating it out to parents and teachers. We look forward to the collaboration and opportunity for this community-wide conversation. Thank you.
Oh, thank you both. It sounds wonderful. And Elaine, just on a more personal note, under your leadership, the library has continued to grow into one of the town's, just wonderful jewels. And the partnership you have grown with the school system is also remarkable. So thank you for both of those. And this particular project sounds good and wonderful and a little bit kind of comforting, in this time of craziness, just to say, let's slow down and smell the roses, sort of take a look at where we are locally, I think is a great approach. Any other questions or comments we should know about? All right, so Fran, you'll give us updates, and will board members get copies of the book?
We will be, yes, we've always brought them in person, and we will be sure to send them over. I'll have Lauren take care of that with Fran.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
I've read,
I'm sure Bob will be happy to autograph the books.
That's right, we can get an autograph.
Yeah. So, But thank you so much. I've so much enjoyed our collaboration, and it truly has been, a very gratifying experience and very enriching for me. So thank you all, and I look forward to seeing you at some of the programs.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks,
And
Elaine.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks, Fran.
Thanks. Okay. The last topic under review and discuss is the superintendent's proposed budget. Kevin will kick this off for us, and just wanted to remind the families and the public that this is the public start of a long process. Tonight, the board is hearing this from Kevin for the first time. Next week, we're going to have 3 workshops, each day sort of delving into different departments. Then the board has its own meeting, couple of meetings to deliberate, one of which will be a joint meeting with the Board of Finance. Then as a board, we finally approve the budget or adopt a budget, to move on to the Board of Finance. So Kevin, welcome. And I know ahead of time how much work the team has put into this. So in advance, just thank all of the principals and the district leaders for submitting the proposals, and for the team who brought it tonight into this proposal. So I look forward to hearing it. And again, we may or may not have a whole lot of discussion tonight, because remember, this is a new presentation to the Board of Ed members as well. So thank you, and go ahead, Kevin.
Terrific, thanks. So I'm going to share my screen, and then I will walk you through. Oops. All right, let's try that one more time. All right, are you looking at the budget proposal, the budget presentation?
Yep.
Okay, great, thank you. So let's see if we can get this going. Okay, so tonight I once again have the privilege of presenting a budget proposal for the Wilton Public Schools. I think this is my 8th budget proposal. This proposal is for the 2022-2023 school year, in which my oldest will be a senior at Wilton High School. This presentation will provide you with a high-level overview and summary of priorities, staffing, and associated costs. And as has been our practice, we'll use the workshops, as Debbie just noted, to conduct a deep dive into each respective cost center, as well as develop a question and answer document. I would just ask, as we have in the past, that our board members send your questions to me. We'll compile them in a table, develop responses, and then we'll review them as part of the board's ongoing deliberations. I too would like to thank our district administrators, our instructional leaders, and other school staff who have been working so diligently to develop proposals for the respective cost centers. I also want to give special recognition to Marianne Salvato, who we're fortunate to have here with us tonight, who serves as our Assistant Director of Fiscal Service and functions as our Budget Director. So Marianne, thank you for all of your incredible work as we develop this budget proposal. It's important that any conversation about school funding be anchored by our vision, our mission, our goals, our promises, and our portrait of a graduate. And so that's where we're going to start this evening. Our vision reads, Wilton Public Schools inspire and prepare all students to contribute meaningfully to a globally interdependent society. Guided by expert instruction and a rigorous learner-centered curriculum, our students actively pursue their goals and aspirations and grow to be productive and resourceful members of the community. That mission and vision is brought to life through the development of our portrait of the graduate, which represents our vision for the 21st century skills and traits and attributes that our students need to succeed in college, career, and life. As you know, we've articulated 6 attributes. Those are contemporary multiliterate scholar, balanced healthy human being, active socially sensitive citizen, courageous ethical leader, self-navigating expert learner, and creative entrepreneurial designer. We've also articulated a set of values and promises. And at the top of that list is the safety and wellness of our students, the desire to bring joy to teaching and learning, the desire to strengthen our community, to steward the environment, to personalize instruction to meet the needs of each learner, to cultivate productive partnerships with students and families, and to ensure that our learning experiences are challenging, authentic, relevant, and meaningful. With respect to specific goals and specific assumptions about this fiscal year 23 budget, our primary overarching budget goal is to provide adequate funding to maintain and improve the high quality education provided to our students in our system ages pre-K to 22. And inside that, our major priorities include continuing to address the unfinished learning and support the social emotional learning and trauma-informed instructional practices that we have been putting in place. Within that priority, our considerations include class size, staffing, professional learning, and the ongoing program initiatives that are underway. We have articulated a second goal of raising overall mathematics achievement, and you'll see priorities lined up in service of that goal. We have discussed for a couple years now to begin facilities improvement work at both Middlebrook and the high school, and to attend to ventilation systems that are currently running at maximum capacity in response to this COVID pandemic. We're also proposing to continue to support our IT hardware replacement plan. As you'll see in the budget when you get into it, we have shifted away from funding through a technology lease, and now we've built the cost of hardware replacement into our operating budget. And then, of course, to support the program and curriculum development that's connected to the Portrait of the Graduate, as well as in including the high school new course proposals that the board recently voted on. With respect to assumptions, we will continue to honor our collective bargaining agreements. We'll comply with federal and state mandates. We also recognize that both special education litigation as well as special education compensatory service costs could impact our budget. And then finally, that our professional learning will target our high priority areas. So to cut right to the bottom line, our fiscal year 23 budget request is for a budget of $87,339,862, which reflects an increase of $2,535,647, or a 2.99% increase over this current year's spending. I just want to note also for the board and for all those that are listening, this operating budget request of an increase of 2.99 does not include the operating capital proposal to address Middlebrook at the high school. I'm going to speak to that separately later on in this presentation. So within the operating budget request, we've articulated a number of priority staffing investments. I just want to call attention to the fact that some of our investments are presently funded through the federal grants that we received. So the ESSER 2 grant and then the ARP or ESSER 3 grant. We have those grant funds for one more year. And then some other staffing investments are indeed in the budget. So the presently funded grant positions are the 1.0 math interventionist at Cider Mill. That's in the ESSER 2 grant. The half-time social worker for Wilton High School, that is also in the ESSER 2 grant. We have funded 2 classroom teachers at MillerDriscoll through the ARP grant. And then we're proposing to keep within that grant the 0.45 MillerDriscoll interventionist. That would also be covered by the ARP or ESSER 3 grant. Also within that ARP grant is a service contract with Children and Family Services that would provide us 1.5 social worker to provide attendance intervention and other social work therapeutic support. The challenge with this grant right now is that those positions have not been filled. Children and Family Services has been unable to staff those. And so the present downside is we don't have those people in place. The upside is we can keep looking because we're proposing to move that contract forward into next year. In terms of what staffing is being proposed and funded through our operating budget, we are proposing to add a 0.8 secondary social worker. This is a position that Andrea has spoken about for the last couple of years. And as you have heard from Andrea, from Kim, from others, we are seeing an increase in mental health needs among our students. And so we think this is a vital position that we need to put in place to help to continue to support our students. We are also proposing to add a 1.0 Middlebrook math specialist. I've labeled that math specialist as opposed to classroom teacher or interventionist, just to understand that we are feeding FTE support to our math initiative, but we're also waiting to make a decision specific about how that position will be operationalized until Jory and his team are able to finish their work on their schedule change proposal. In addition, we are proposing to add another paraprofessional to special education services to support some of our neediest students. I would also note that there is not specific funding, called out for these new courses. We manage the running of those courses through our existing FTE, but also tied to our math improvement initiative are 2 new math classes, the Algebra 1 Geometry Accelerated course, and then the Geometry Algebrated 2 Accelerated course. So that's the 2-in-1 and the 3-in-2 courses that Trudy spoke about some time ago. Beyond those, we're also proposing to add an introduction to exercise science and sports medicine, the African American Latino Studies course, American Sign Language 3, which will now give students a 3-course pathway to study and master American Sign Language, marine biology, and then the wellness seminar. I wanted to spend a minute just talking about some of the staffing changes. This gets complex. Annually, we shift staff around, and sometimes we're in positions where we need to add staff that hadn't been budgeted. So this year in fiscal 22, as a result of new students moving into the district, as well as a student returning to us from outplacement, we were required to add 2.75 special education paraprofessionals and then a 1.0 community steps job coach. So those positions were added this year, but they weren't in the budget. And so when you are looking at staffing in the budget, you'll see those ads because they're now budget to budget. As I mentioned already, we're proposing new staff for fiscal 23. That's the certified math support at Middlebrook, the 0.8 social worker, and then the 1.0 special education paraprofessional. We're also looking to reduce some other positions. So you'll see, when we talk about class sizes, I am proposing that we reduce 2 classroom sections at Cider Mill, that we reduce 1.0 Wilton High School Library and Media paraprofessional position, and then a 0.4 Wilton High School certified. That's not actually a person, but it's just a change as a result of section changes and reducing 2.2 sections. And then finally, we're also proposing to shift some existing staff. So we've had in the budget a 1.0 high school science paraprofessional for many years. The individual that was in that role retired. And so we are seeking to shift that position to a 0.5 high school science para to continue to provide some level of support to our science teachers, and then shift the other 0.5 to provide additional clerical support to the front office at Wilton High School. You'll note within the budget, we also shifted one of our high school special educators to Genesis to support students over there. And then we have an existing 0.3 high school interventionist that we have moved out of the IDEA grant and into the high school operating budget. The reason for that shift was that this particular interventionist is now providing support primarily to non-special education students. So it didn't seem appropriate to keep the funding for that in the IDEA grant, which is dedicated to students with special needs. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I just want to provide this to you informationally. We track very carefully our cohort sizes. And so you can look across time here beginning in October 2010, and you can track the differences over time in each of the grade level cohorts. I think what's important to note here, if you look at the bottom of this slide, in addition to students who are in our schools pre-K-12, we also track those students who are outplaced, as well as our 18 to 22-year-old students who are part of our Community Steps program. And so if you look at the very bottom, when we talk about a grand total of student enrollment, what we're talking about is the number of students that this budget serves, which includes all of our kids who are within our schools, as well as the students who are outplaced and our students in our Community Steps program. Here, again, just informationally, and we'll provide this to the board in writing in an executive summary, and you'll see we'll provide to you a couple of other years. But we track our staffing over time, across buildings. And so this slide and this set of documents will help you track the shifts that we've made in staff by type over time. And so you'll see the growth in special services, you'll see the changes in certified teachers, you'll see the increase in interventionists, and then you'll see the increase in paraprofessionals over time. The other staffing categories have remained relatively flat for the last 3, 4, 5 years. This is a slide that should be familiar to you. It was presented as part of Mike Zuba's presentation when he provided the demographic, the enrollment projections several weeks ago. And so, what you're looking at is just a historical enrollment perspective beginning in 2001 and casting forward, 20 years to 21, 22. If you go back and you look at the total enrollment in 2001, 2002, and compare it to, 21, 22, there's about an 8% decline. And then if you look at the peak in 08, 09, there's been about a 15% change in enrollment since then. And so as Mike noted, we'll continue to see a bit of a decline and then leveling off. And then by grade level, over the next several years, we'll see increases at MillerDriscoll and Cider Mill, and then slight decreases at Middlebrook in the high school. So here's what we're projecting for next year. As I noted, you can see across cohorts. We're adding students at MillerDriscoll. We're losing students at Cider Mill, and then we have a couple of modest declines projected for both the middle school and the high school. So when you look at the projected total district enrollment, we're anticipating 3,631 students K-12, and then an additional 95 students through Community Steps, through our outplacement, and through our pre-K, for a grand total of 3,726 projected students. I'll note for you a couple of things. We average our pre-K at 58 students. And so when we look across a school year, pre-K students age in beginning at age 3. And so it is very common that we start with 45, 50, 55 students. And then by the end of the year, finish with 65, 70, 75. In some years, we've seen as many as 80 students in that program. But we feel comfortable with an average of about 58 when we're talking about that program. Our Community Steps program is slated to grow by a couple of kids. And we're also projecting an increase for the next year, at least, in some outplaced students. Andrea and some of our other assistant SPED directors have talked about some concerns we're seeing among elementary age children. And so for the first time in many years, we are in a position where, we have a couple of youngsters in our elementary schools who, because of the issues they're coming to school with, are not successful in our programs and may require an alternate. So we're anticipating an increase primarily driven by some of our elementary students who are really struggling right now. When you look into the out years, we're anticipating that that outplacement number will decrease again because we have students who will be graduating out of our schools, and that'll bring the number down. So looking at enrollment sections and class size at MillerDriscoll, I would note for you, if you look across the middle of the slide there in the 2022-2023 average class size, because I am proposing to hold the number of sections flat at 39, we are anticipating a slight increase in each grade level in just about every class of about 1 student. So for example, our average class size in kindergarten, we're anticipating, if those projections hold true, will increase slightly from 18 students in a class to about 18.9. So that'll be, most classes will have 19 students. In grade 1, we're also anticipating, some classes with 19 students and a couple with 20. And then in grade 2, class sizes of about 21 with a couple classes of 22. Similar story at Cider Mill, although we're projecting slight decrease in enrollment here in grade 3 with 13 sections. We're imagining we'll see, about the same or maybe a slight decrease in class size, a difference of, 20.1 to 19.9. For grades 4 and 5, we are anticipating slightly higher class sizes. So, where we're running 19s and 20s, we imagine we'll probably be running classes of 21 in grade 4, and then classes also of 21 with a, maybe a 22 or two classes or so of 22 in grade 5. At Middlebrook and the high school, the enrollment differences are, a handful of students or 2. And so we don't anticipate that there'll be any changes in class size averages there across those schools, and not really any impact on staffing as well based on enrollment. And then, as I mentioned already, in our special programs, I noted for you, we're anticipating 1-year increase in our outplacement students, slight increase in community steps, as well as a slight increase in Genesis. I think we also may have the opportunity in the Genesis program to invite a couple of students from out of district that would be sent from other districts, and they would be tuition paying. So we might have the opportunity for some budgetary offsets if we were able to take in a couple more students from out of the district. So as I noted for you, the budget proposal is just over 87 million. I now want to transition and spend some time just looking at the categories of the budgets and how those dollars are being allocated. So in terms of our primary categories, we break the budget down into salaries, employee insurance and benefits, liability insurance, contracted services, supplies, utilities, property services, purchase services, and equipment. And no surprise to anybody, but the largest portion of the budget is dedicated to our personnel, and that's expressed in the form of salaries and employee insurance and benefits, which makes up just under 80%. It's about 79.23% of the total budget that is dedicated to our personnel. Contracted services reflects the next largest share of the budget, and it's in that line where we find our transportation contract, our food service contract, legal expenses, and so on. In terms of dollars, the salaries and benefits account for just over 69 million of the total, $87,300,000 request. So again, you can see, very easily that our priority is personnel, and our budget reflects the personnel that we have serving our students. So with respect to variances by each budget category, the largest change year over year is in the salary line, and the salary line increase is about $1.35 million. So it's one. Liability insurance is showing an increase of about $15,500, and then the employee benefits, which comprises 13% of the budget, is showing an increase of $321,684. Here, with the supply category of the budget, which is 2.47% of the total operating budget, we're showing an increase of $139, almost $140,000. That increase is primarily driven by the increase in the use and the increase in cost of our digital resources. The equipment line is also showing a fairly substantial increase of just over $500,000. And then if you were looking for some good news in this budget, the other purchase service line is almost flat with a slight increase of just $4,800. Similarly, the contracted services line, we didn't see substantial growth year over year, fortunately, and we're showing a very modest increase in that line of $6,821. Property services and utilities both show increases. Property services by $45,839, and utilities has shown in that line a fairly substantial increase of a dollar amount of $120,846. So just to summarize the increase in the changes, that salary increase of the 1.3 million is driven primarily by contracted increase, and then amplified a little bit by the new positions we're proposing to add. The liability insurance increase is really based on a 5% increase that was forecasted. The employee benefits increase is driven by the forecasted 5% increase on medical insurance. As I noted before, supplies and digital resources is really being, that increase is driven by the increased cost and increased use of digital resources. And then the increase in the equipment line is really the change from using a lease agreement to purchase our technology hardware to building those dollars into the budget and purchasing the equipment outright. So that would be, primarily Chromebooks for our students in grades 3 to 8, laptops for teachers. We have some funds set aside for furniture replacement for both staff and students. We are including in the budget music instrument replacement. Our FAPA staff has developed an instrument replacement plan, and that's been deferred in the past, so we're trying to catch up there. Then we also have kind of standard annual purchases through athletics. In our facilities budget, there is some, I think it's around 35,000 set aside to upgrade the HVAC automation here at the high school. We have some science equipment, and then we're proposing to replace the light board in the little theater. The other purchase services, that's where our out-of-district tuition lives, as well as some transportation for field trips and athletics. The contracted services line within that, you'll see that's primarily our bus contract, the transportation in district, as well as some of the contracts for the out-of-district transportation we provide to students who are outplaced. And we have a proposal to begin a document digitization project. The property services line, that really speaks to the rental fees for the trackside facility, and then for athletics, the ice time for hockey, the pools for swimming, and the mountains for skiing. And then within that line, we also have building maintenance, repairs, and renovations. And then the utilities line is really, the increase is driven by the increase in the cost of electricity and gas. So I want to take a minute and talk about the operating capital. So as you know, I think just prior to the pandemic, we had developed a proposal to address Cider Mill, Middlebrook, and the high school. We were successful in upgrading the facility at Cider Mill. The projects are comparable in that the proposals are similar. So what we're looking to do is replace the old and worn out carpeting with tile flooring. We're looking to upgrade all of the lighting in the facilities with high efficiency LED lights, and as well replace all of the ceiling tiles, and then paint each of the schools, all the classrooms and the corridors, et cetera. In addition to that, We have budgeted some funds for a moving company to come and just help move, all of to empty the classrooms and empty the hallways and move things back and forth. We don't have enough custodial staff to be able to facilitate that. And then there are a couple of other pieces that are unique to each building. So at the Middlebrook, before we can put down tile, we have to put down a sealant so we can mitigate the moisture in the Cheryl and Peterson wing. And then there's another section of the high school that needs similar mitigation. So the total cost of the project for Middlebrook is it's about $1.2 million, and we're proposing to split that up. And so what I've included here as part of the fiscal 23 proposal is that we fund the first phase of the middle school project, which is just over $610,000. The first phase of the high school project, if you look at the bottom half of the slide and under the column that's fiscal 24, similar types of activities, not quite as expensive, but the first phase of the high school would be about $557,000. We've deferred these projects now for a couple of years, and so it's my sincere hope that we can garner the support of both the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen to begin this work, at least at the middle school. And then I think we really need to have some deep conversations about the conditions of our facilities and develop some shared commitment to ensuring that we are able to dedicate dollars annually so we can appropriately address these facilities. Just some summary information. You'll note that our operating budgets have reflected, I think, very modest or no increases in each of the last 7 years. In 1920, our operating budget was a zero budget, and we went to and were successful with the Board of Finance in requesting $468,000 in charter funding to launch Genesis. And so, that reflects, about a 0.5% increase over the previous year's budget, if you want to look at the total cost of that. But over the last 7 years, the average budget increase was really just over a point. And so I think, even with, we've managed the cost increases very well. We've worked diligently to improve our programming, to enhance our services, and I think deliver budgets that reflect the desire to protect taxpayers from large increases. We've managed the enrollment decline and shifted resources to respond to current student needs while advancing our continuous improvement agenda. So when you consider both proposals combined, our Board of Ed operating budget sits at a proposed 2.99% increase. And then, I'm estimating if you take that dollar amount of $610,000 and bench it off of the current year budget, it's about a 0.72 increase. And so if you were to combine those, the ask is about a 3.71% increase over current year spending. When you look across the DIRG, Wilton, in the years that I've been here, has typically had one of the lowest annual cost increases relative to our DIRG counterparts. And this year, the story is the same. Even if you add to our number the operating capital proposal, we're still one of the lowest proposed increases, I think with the exception of Weston, in this proposed fiscal year. I want to talk just a minute about per pupil expenditures. So there are two sources from which we derive our per pupil expenditures. One is EdSite, which is the Connecticut State Education Database. The good news about that database is it gets more populated and just better and better every year. So if you spend any time on it, you can really find a rich set of data. The drawback to the EdSite website is that the information is typically dated. You'll find information, but it's sometimes a year or more old. So if you're looking for real-time information, it's not the best source. If you're looking for comparative information, it's a great source. You just have to understand that it's a couple years old. So on ed side, if you look back across the last 3 years, you'll know, Wilton here, which is in the middle of each set of bars, we're solidly in the middle, and that's been our trend. We're usually on the lower side of the per pupil expenditure within the DIRG. 1920 was a different kind of year. In that year, actually, New Canaan and Darien had slightly lower per pupil expenditures than we did. The second source of information for per pupil expenditure is the Connecticut State Department of Education Bureau of Fiscal Services. The Bureau of Fiscal Services runs per pupil expenditure reports twice a year, once in October and then again in January. I'm expecting we'll get the January run sometime next week. But this is the document that's used to calculate excess cost. And so this run was from October 13th of this year. And you can see, Ridgefield and New Canaan have slightly lower per pupil expenditures than we do. Westport, West, and Darien, ER9, we didn't include on the slide because they're a regional district, but they generally run higher than we do. And so just to begin to wrap up here, for years, I've said that the budget pays for essentially two things, performance and opportunity. And I think we should all feel very proud of our students' accomplishments. Annually, our students are recognized for myriad achievements in the classroom, on the stage, and on the playing field. Our district ranks very highly, both in the state and nationally. We are routinely among the top 1% of all districts, ranked by US News and World Report. Nearly all of our graduates go on to post-secondary education, and many, if not the majority, attend top universities here in the US and around the globe. To a person, every graduate I encounter, every recent graduate, makes a point to tell me how well he or she was prepared for college. And I found over time that conversation often unfolds in very similar ways. First, they know how well prepared they were, and then they know that they felt better prepared than their peers from other high schools. While academically, we have certainly seen a dip this year because of the unfinished learning wrought by the COVID pandemic, our students still excel compared to their peers nationally. Some recent data you've already seen in the 2021, 85% of our AP test takers achieved a 3 or better, which earned them college credit. And then on the ACT, students in 2021 actually improved year over year, with the average composite score increasing from 26.8 to 27.3. So again, our students continue to do very, very well. Last, as we're wrapping this up, we want to take a moment first to thank all of you, to thank our families and our community partners. As Elaine noted earlier, we certainly know that it takes a village to raise a child. That has never been more true than during this pandemic. I have been so grateful to all of our community partners who have continued to support our students and support our schools while we've navigated these most trying of years. And we are very much looking forward to continuing those partnerships in the years ahead. And the final piece here is just some calendar information for you. Some upcoming key dates in this budget approval process. You're already aware of the budget workshops we have slated for next week, the 25th, 26th, and 27th. Those will occur in the afternoon. We'll hold those much the same in webinar format. The members of the public are invited to tune in and listen to those deliberations. Inside those workshops, you'll hear from administrators leading each of the respective cost centers, and it'll be an opportunity to do a deep dive into the funding plans for each of those cost centers. And then looking forward, the board will meet again to continue its deliberations on February 3rd. Those deliberations will continue as part of a joint meeting on February 10th with the Board of Finance. And then the board will conclude its deliberations and vote on a proposal on February 17th. Annually, we also have a Board of Finance public hearing on the Board of Ed budget. And once I have that date, I'll forward it to you. And then usually it's the, I think the first Monday or Tuesday in May that we have the annual town meeting. Okay, and hopefully everyone's still awake.
No, more than awake, Kevin. Again, before we dive into any of the topics, I want to thank you and the team for such a comprehensive presentation. There are a lot of other documents that the Board of Ed got that are probably already posted. And then we have our upcoming workshops. So basically, as a board, we have about a month to to study this, make any revisions that we might feel are appropriate before the Board of Ed votes on a final version to send forward to the Board of Finance. So again, Kevin and your whole team, thank you. Again, very comprehensive, clear picture of what's being proposed. Any board members want to make any comments tonight or reactions or anything?
Kevin, I just had a quick question. Sorry, let me get back on video. And I don't want to get in deep, but the contracted services, how come those would go up? Are those new contracts that have changed in price?
They're, when you think about some of the larger contracts we have, so with transportation and food services, those are often multi-year contracts. And then there's an annual increase built into the contract.
Got it. So it's not that the contracts are renewing, it's just the increase.
It is, but Kevin, you're also seeing the document digitization under
Right.
there also, which is new.
Yeah, so that's right. So Mandy, that would be a new funding stream to cover the cost of that project.
And the main services that we contract out for are the food and the bus.
I think busing, I think, is the largest contract we have. And then we have a range of other contracts. So within that broad bucket, you'll see, some contracts for support services within special education. You would also find like some service contracts, that are much smaller, but, working with companies to support our, HVAC systems, things like that.
Got it.
Okay, any other questions tonight? Okay, we've got tons to think about, of course, and go through and analyze and reflect upon. But again, thanks for the clear presentation. I was jotting down notes. I think we all were. So in the upcoming workshops, you'll see our questions. And to the extent possible, I encourage everybody to send them ahead of time. Not that there can't be anything at the meeting. Of course, there can be. But I think it helps the staff to know what our questions are in advance so they can get started on it. There's something else I was going to say, but I forgot. So any other, anything do you think I'm missing, Kevin? Oh, I was going to ask, remind me what the first workshop is what departments are, which nights?
On Tuesday, January 25th, we'll hear from Kathy at MillerDriscoll, Jen at Cider Mill, and then Andrea in special services.
Okay. Great. All right. So in particular, get those questions to Kevin first, and then we'll follow it up at the succeeding afternoons. And those meetings will be Zoom, but they'll also be recorded. So anybody can catch up from the public if you want to keep apprised of those workshops. Anything else we should know tonight, Kevin, before we start doing our homework?
I think you've got a lot to dig into.
Yes, we do. Okay, thank you. There aren't any action items tonight. The board workshops, again, the times are there. They will be by Zoom. Leads us to comments from the public. Are there other comments tonight? Lucille, I don't know if you see any hands raised.
Yes, there is one.
Okay.
Noah Litton.
Yeah,
Okay.
hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Fantastic. So with the forthcoming budget meetings, I would request that the board review the lack of balance when it comes to non-core classes at Middlebrook. Significant attention and money is spent on the arts, especially music, with a relative lack of spending on STEM. If a child's interested in music, this is more than adequately met at the school through required classes. If a student is interested in computer science or programming or STEM, this has to be met largely outside of the school. In my opinion, this needs to be reviewed with budgetary assumptions that continue year after year to be freshly assessed. I would suggest that as a start, Wilton adopt a zero-based budgeting process. So instead of starting from the previous year's budget, a new budget is started from scratch or zero. And hopefully this will allow a fundamental reset when it comes to educational priorities, especially when it comes to STEM. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
No, I don't see any.
Okay. All right, we've completed our agenda, so therefore I'm going to adjourn our meeting. We'll see everybody, or see the board members anyway, and staff at the our upcoming board workshop. We're going to see quite a bit of each other in the next few weeks. So thanks and have a good night, and this meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.